Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. I am your host, JP John Paz, and with me today is a very, very special guest. He is, of course, a former two-time WCW World Tag Team Champion, the creation of devastation in the WWF, known as Adam Bomb. Of course, he was also Wrath in WCW and a great member of Chronic. He is, of course, Mr. Brian Clark. Welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling.
Hey, man. Good intro. Thanks. Appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Yay, no problem at all. So, what's been going on with you? I know you're keeping very busy lately. You've been kind of all over
Uh,
the place.
Man, it has been. This past week, PWT's released a line of merchandise for me. Probably 10 different shirts of different stuff I've created. I've been working on this for a long time. It's something that didn't just happen. I work with a graphic designer on everything. So my touch, they're all my ideas and creations put together. And I had a designer put them all together for me. And I've got another one in the works with Tom Fleming, who created Adam Bomb back from the WWF days. He also did a lot of work on Undertaker, Razor Ramon, all the pay-per-view posters. I mean, and now he works for Marvel Comics. Wow. So I can give you an idea of what I got coming up. So real excited about all of it. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that you're kind of getting back out there, pro wrestling tees, because you could do the Adam Bomb, you could do the Chronic, you could do the Wrath. So there's all like cool kind of stuff you could do.
Yeah. And I even got stuff from the All Japan title that win. I put together a phenomenal shirt, man. It's the breaking necks, cash and checks thing.
Yep.
You just got to go check it out, man. It's pretty creative stuff, if I have to say, if I had to put myself over a little bit. But like I said, I've been working on it a long time. So
should have mentioned in the intro, All Japan Tag Team Champion.
Hey, I
should have said that, yeah.
3 times. I was going to let you slide.
Yep.
It's cool. Yeah.
Yep. Now, as far as kind of you and other stuff, what are you doing? Are you still doing a lot of the wrestling stuff? I know because of the pandemic, it's not personal appearances, but are you still doing a lot of the wrestling stuff?
I just started back. I did a few right before the pandemic. I did New York and a few other areas. And then when that shut down, I sort of shut down, you know what I mean? Because everything was just, I don't know, everything was delayed. It was just a big hassle. When I say hassle, I mean just the whole idea of trying to fly cross country. I'm out in Arizona, and I just sort of waited till things just sort of opened back up, and I just started taking them again. In the meantime, I was working on all these other the whole merchandising stuff. So I've been busy. I've been training like crazy. I'm in the gym every morning at 7 a.m. It's just been all good stuff.
Now, as far as you and like your career, before you got into wrestling, were you in the military, or what was kind of the life before wrestling?
Oh, okay. Right out of high school, I joined the military. I come from a military family. My stepfather's Army. My father's Marine Corps. Both of my nephews are Special Forces. Grandfather, World War II. It just goes on and on. Myself, I served. I started powerlifting in the Air Force, got on the Air Force powerlifting team, won a few championships over in Europe. From there, walked on at Central Missouri State. And here's, you'll get it. I didn't even play high school football. I just walked on in the spring. I got a full scholarship, and I started as a freshman.
Wow.
I mean, I was just so strong, man, just such a powerhouse. And I had in my mind I was going to play college football no matter what, just like I had in my mind I was going to be a pro wrestler no matter what. So that was like I said, high school, military. My stepfather instilled weight training to me at a very young age, and it has stayed with me through thick and thin, man. It just has been such that's my place to go, is the gym. And it's never left my side. I know it's other people have other things, but that's just my thing, man. And I did it this morning. I've done to this day.
Were you always a big wrestling fan? You said you always kind of wanted to be a pro wrestler. Was you always a big fan?
Yeah, actually, I was. I've got to see pro wrestling at a very young age. I'm from Florida, and so Florida Championship Wrestling, they would come through my hometown occasionally, and I got to see some of the greats as a kid. I got to see Andre the Giant. I got to see Dusty Rhodes. I got to see Buddy Colt. Um, just a lot of legends, and I was just a kid. I was probably 8, 9 years old. And I told the story before. My grandmother used to get ringside seats.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so I didn't always get to sit ringside. I would sit up in the stands, but I would sneak my way down to my grandmother's ringside seat. And so I would get ringside action, man. And so I'm sure I was hooked at a very young age. Um, I've always been fascinated and loved it.
So interesting. I had a college professor who wrote a thesis paper on older women, grandmothers that were wrestling fans. It was such an interesting thing because he knew I was into wrestling. I was like, wow. And he goes, he goes, like, you have no idea how into it these women were. Like, they were more into it than the male fans. So I was like, wow, that's such a cool thing. So he was saying like his grandmother, that's where he got the inspiration. She was really into wrestling. So I was like, oh my
Mine
God.
too, man. Mine too. I don't know what that is, but maybe it's their soap opera from the day. This was a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she loved it.
Very cool. And you always see like that hat pin woman, or or even in WCW when Hogan was in the NWO, you always see that old woman trying to get Hogan with the little pin.
Yeah, there you go. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Always like that. It's interesting. So when you're a big fan of stuff, when do you start putting on like the size? And obviously you're probably 6'6" or so. So when do you start putting on the size and realizing like, okay, I could play college football. I'm a big boy. Wrestling is going to come easy because I'm big. When do you start putting on that kind of like girth?
Man, I honestly, as soon as I went through the military police academy, all through my combat training, once I was finished with that, and I got to my first assignment. That's all I did was weight train and eat and train and eat and sleep. No, that's all I did, and it just was coming to me so naturally. I was, like I said, and then I got transferred over to Europe. I was stationed in Belgium for a year, and then I got myself as a super heavyweight onto the Air Force powerlifting team. I won the U.S. Air Forces in Europe title, and just I kept competing in powerlifting and weight training. And then when I got back to the States, I got stationed in Missouri, and the closest place I was just like out of my head. I was like, okay, what wherever I land, because I had no idea where I was going to be stationed. That's where the military is. You'll find out when you get there, kind of thing.
Yep.
But I just was. I told myself, I was like, okay, the school that is the closest to me, that's where I'm walking on. I didn't care where it was at. I mean, within reason. You know what I mean? I didn't want to go to some of the places didn't have a tradition, at least, and I ended up going to Central Missouri State, which they've always been a winning school. Butch Reed played college football there. I don't know, long time before I did, but he was a middle linebacker there. I played side by side with Jeff Wright, who was the nose tackle for the Buffalo Bills in all 4 Super Bowls. So man, we just had there's been a lot of good talent that have went through Central Missouri State, and so that, like I said, that was the tie-in from the military transition into college athletics.
Did you ever think about playing for the NFL?
I thought about it, and like I said, the guy I played right next to got drafted by Buffalo. I think he might have went in the 6th or 7th round, made it, and I went to all 4 Super Bowls. Had a great career. I just I'd already knew, even though I was playing college football, already in my head I was like pro wrestling. That's what I want to do. And I've told this story before. Like, I'd make a tackle of somebody and get up and cut a promo on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, just stupid crap like that. But yeah, I just was hooked, man, especially during college, man. It was so red hot. That's all I thought about. Yeah.
So what made you, finally make the jump and get trained, and who'd you go to for that?
Well, initially, I had found out that Ox Baker lived not too far away from me. And I was like, man, I got to meet him, So I had a friend introduce me to him. And so he sort of introduced me to the business, as far as me getting a little bit of a taste of it. But I really got, once I had finished college, graduated, I knew that I said, okay, I got to get trained. Because I'd had a couple of matches, fell on my face, I was not ready. And the bottom line is I was not ready. Too green, which everybody sort of goes through that process. At least I think most people do. But yeah, I moved to Atlanta and met with Jody Hamilton and Dwayne Bruce. And those are the two guys that trained me at what is called a power plant. But when I went to it, like I told the story before, when I went to it, it was an old carpet warehouse. There was no three rings in a weight room, and all this stuff is here. There was none of that. It was just a hot box. But I paid my dues down there, working my way through the Outlaws and the Independents and anywhere I could go to get to work and to get ring experience. Until I got a break. I'd worked Paul Orndorff of all people on an independent, and he was working Smoky Mountain at the time, and he put me over to Jim Cornette, and Cornette says, "Hey, bring him up. I want to take a look at him," and so that sort of led into Smoky Mountain.
Nice. And now, even before that, though, when you first started, when he's training you, are they training you? Because you always hear that back then they would train you to not make it. Were they training you to almost not make it? Was it like that tough?
Man, I felt like I was being suplexed out of my boots for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm sure they were testing me, but I just was not going to break. I had sacrificed. I already made the commitment to, like I said, the move down there. I put everything in a U-Haul and said, "This is it, man." So yeah, they were going to have to do a hell of a lot to run me off because I was bound and determined to make it. Yeah.
And then really.
I do think that there were some guys that got ran off one way or another. So, yeah.
Yeah, because when you kind of break in at that period of time, Jody's a tough guy, and they weren't necessarily always loving guys getting into the business. They were like, okay, whoever's the toughest guy can stay, and they'll be able to make it in the business.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, there was no like open door policy. Oh, come on in. We're going to take you because of this or that or whatever, But like I said, I was 6'6", 290, 300. I can handle myself pretty well, and I just think it paid off.
Definitely. When you first started, you were in the AWA, right? You were the Night Stalker with Vern up in the AWA. How did you get in there?
See, that's good. That goes back to me not being ready. I had met Ox, and Ox got me on a couple of times, right when AWA was basically closing the doors. Yep. But he got me on one or two things. So yeah, I was still in college playing college football and doing that.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was crazy. Like I'd get out of class, come home, turn on ESPN, and I'm like, hey, I'm on, just a little one or two little bits. Nothing to really establish me at all. Just like I said, just give me a little taste of the business. Then later on, I would really, a couple of years later, I'd really get the full effect.
Yep, because you're in WCW as a Night Stalker as well for a little bit, a little cup of coffee. I remember the match with Sid obviously doesn't go that great. You had some stuff there. Yeah.
I was still at Central Missouri when I had that match. I know.
You realize you were that young. Wow.
Yes, I was still playing football and coming in and doing that. It's just one of those things where I was so green and was not ready. But I did, like I said, a couple things for WCW. I feel like they just sort of threw me in there, and I wasn't ready for it. I needed that seasoning.
Yeah, for sure. And then a little bit of UWF with Herb Abrams, and then, like you said, Smoky Mountain with Jimmy Cornette. What did you think about Mr. Cornette?
I thought he was great. Still do. I haven't talked to him in forever. But I I mean, I credit him for getting me really my first break in Smoky. I mean, him and of course Paul Orndorff, and being on the road with Paul, man, I was able to absorb. I mean, we were traveling together from Atlanta, so I was able to absorb as much as I possibly could. And then Cornette put me with Kevin Sullivan, so I was even just trying to soak up more, as much as I could. But yeah, Jim really got me started. As far as being in a company, being on a weekly TV show, understanding more and more about the business.
When you're there, is this like thinking to yourself, like, okay, this is going to be a full-time job now? Wrestling is it? It's my focus. Is that when you kind of click for you?
I wanted it to be, but I knew that Smoky was regional, and we were mostly in the Southeast, in the Carolinas, and a few shows in Kentucky, and just all over the place. But it was mostly like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. And then when I got back to Atlanta, I had a job, so I was working. I was doing both, trying to make ends meet, because there just wasn't a whole lot of money to be made in Smoky, because, like I said, it's regional. So for some guys that lived in that area, I think they were able to have that just as their only income. But with me at the time, I was working, and every 3 or 4 days, I had a guy that I was working with that was a good employer, and I was able to let me go to get that experience.
And you were TV champ there, so I mean, it was a little bit, right? A little bit of a push.
Yeah. Smoky Mountain television champ. Hey, yeah, I had it for a week or so. Yeah, it was. That showed me that Jim had confidence in me, and that I was learning more and more and more. And the locker room was filled with great guys: Tom Pritchard, Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson, Tim Horner. I mean, the locker room was filled with a lot of legends and stuff guys that I could learn from. Tracy Smothers. It goes on and on. I mean, the list is it was a hell of a locker room. I love Smoky Mountain. Looking back, it was the most fun and the least amount of pressure. Even though I was still had to prove myself, I look back to my whole career, that was the least amount of pressure I had. I don't know if it was because of the way Jim handled things, which I'm sure it probably was. But yeah, that was always a good memory of Smoky, no doubt. Smoky Mountain.
Did you know when you're at Smoky Mountain that it could be like a launching pad to the WWF? Did you know that there was a relationship there and that Cornette could help you get in the WWF, or you weren't even aware of that?
I knew, I had a feeling, and I knew that they had to be watching what other promotions were doing. There was Texas and a few other areas that were, I'm sure that Vince was always keeping an eye on, or had people looking at, for him. And so, yeah, I sort of felt like there was a connection somewhere, but it really was never announced or made official. Hey, we're working with these guys, whatever. I just, I know that when I got the call, Sergeant Slaughter called me and said, hey, we've been looking at you. We want to get a better look at you. We want you to come up for a TV taping. A couple of TV tapings up in the Carolinas when we're going to be in town in a couple of months or whatever it was. And so that's when I got my tryout.
Now, I guess the tryout, was that against Just Incredible, or do you even remember who, or PJ Walker, who was the first match against?
Reno Riggins.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
I just talked to Reno. Nice.
Yeah, he was great to work with. He was excellent.
Awesome.
Yeah. And the second guy, man, I don't remember who the second guy was. There were 2 nights. I got hired after the first night. After my match with Reno, they called me in and said, "Oh, you're hired." I'm like, "Great." So yeah, Reno was excellent.
I always PJ's a buddy of mine, Just Incredible. He always says, I think maybe it was your first TV match, but he always said he was kind of one of the first guys to be able to. He would like name a bunch of guys. He's like Adam Bomb, this person, like, so. Just remember that, like,
we did work. Oh yeah, we worked plenty of times. I just don't. I don't remember if it was during the tryout or not. Yeah, we definitely worked a lot of TVs and different times.
It's funny, I was just talking to Reno, and he was telling a story about how basically he kind of snuck in his his way into the WWF. He pretended he was the FedEx driver, and then he was telling them how he was a trainer. So pretty funny story.
I never knew that, but
Yeah.
that's funny.
But they knew, I guess he knew that he was a worker, so they knew he was a worker. Like, well, show up to the next town, we'll get you on the show. So, kind of a funny way into the business. But for you, I feel like you're like the prototypical Vince McMahon guy. You know, tall, big. Did somebody say that to you? Like, oh, Vince loves these giant guys that are larger than life and kind of bigger than a
Um,
normal athlete, so to speak.
I'd heard that before, but I was going to make separate myself from that. I also became a high flyer. Since the very beginning of my training, I was ready to go to the top rope. I was not going to just be big and slow or the big guy who only has two moves. That was not in my mindset. I was ready to try impressive big moves, high flying stuff, and I did throughout my career. But yeah, that's the one thing. It's like, yeah, okay, hey, he wants big, impressive guys that take care of themselves, look good, train hard, not just in wrestling, but outside of the business. You got to take care of yourself and work out. So I knew that, but I also had to know that I had to separate myself.
You did that with the athleticism and things like that. So when you first get in and you're working for WWF, are you Adam Bomb per se? Do they give you a name? Do they give you a gimmick, or is that something you got to meet with Vince at Titan Towers and you go over the concept?
Well, I remember trying out, getting hired. Then they basically sent me home and said, "Okay, well, we're going to come up with something for you." And they pitched a couple of things to me, and Adam Bomb was the one that I chose. I said this a couple of weeks ago, and the London Sun, the UK newspaper, picked it up. But they also pitched me the ringmaster gimmick.
Oh wow!
They sent me two choices, and I picked Adam Bomb. And if I look at, I could probably find them somewhere. But and people were like, "Oh, that's BS." I'm like, "Look, they trademarked it in '93. Check the trademarks. I don't care if you believe me or not." I got tired of defending it, but
Yep.
those were the two gimmicks that were offered, and I went with Adam Bomb because I just felt I could do a lot more with it.
Interesting. The ringmaster of all things. Yeah.
Hey, man, that's a shoot, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've said it before, and you know, um, I know that, like I said, they gave that, they gave that to Steve Austin
Yeah. A
later.
few years later. Yeah.
Yeah, but they had that. I mean, they trademarked a lot of stuff at the time, and so yeah, that, like I said, that's how that happened.
It's funny too because Austin always has that story of all the gimmick names that they wanted to give him too, Chili McFreeze and like all these corny nicknames and stuff. So
I
you
know.
almost got lucky that you didn't get all those other corny nicknames.
Well, Adam Bomb is catchy, and
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
it's a dual name and Adam, two spellings, whatever. Like I said, I felt I could do more with it than the other gimmick, so that's why I chose it. And um, back to Tom Fleming, he's the one who had the art designs that he sent to me, and the other design was somebody else that had sent. I don't know who did that, but Tom did Adam Bomb, and so it just looked badass.
Yeah.
And so that's I just said, man, that's the one I want, and so
So when Vince or whoever's kind of explaining the gimmick, do they sit you down and be like, "Well, listen, you're going to have a red tongue, you're going to have green eyes"? Like, do they explain that to you, or are you coming up with that stuff?
I came up with that. I
Wow. Okay.
suggested, I did the red tongue thing because it's a nuclear gimmick.
Yep.
The red eyes, I told them about it. They flew me to New York and Manhattan, and I got the special eye specialist, and he actually made them to wear my prescription because I wore contacts. So he made them my prescription, but also made the fluorescent yellow.
Yep.
So yeah, that was my suggestion. A lot of stuff, like I said, the name and stuff, they had it, and that's what they came up with. And Tom put together a lot of the colors and everything. But you sort of have to, whatever you come up with, you've got to own it, and you've got to really put your touches on it because you're just going to feel better with the gimmick.
And this new generation that they're kind of putting together, it is very gimmick orientated. Like they have the colors and the looks and the different things. So when you're Adam Bomb, are you kind of you fully invested? And like, what is Vince thinking of you as the character at first?
Um, I think he liked it, and the fact that I was not just a foot soldier. What I
Yeah.
mean by that is that I would go and fly. Like even the Manhattan Center, my debut and stuff. I'm off the top rope doing my stuff and my power moves too. But I think he liked it. I think a lot of people did, and it's still popular to this day. Man, I got so many followers and stuff that I'm humbled by it because it's really cool that they're loving the merchandise and they're liking my ideas and stuff on a lot of stuff. So it was it was a gimmick that people could get with.
And it's funny too. I was looking up the other day trying to get a green card Hasbro Atom Bomb. Oh, they're a couple $100. They are expensive. Remember the little Hasbro guys? You were part of the last series. They called it the green card because of the backing.
Okay,
Man,
yeah. I got like
wow.
I got like I got so many action figures of mine.
Yep,
Yeah, I got a lot of those. But yeah, they are real popular, man.
they're expensive. Oof.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I sign it, they'll be worth even more. So
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Got to get if you can get your hands on them. If a
they,
lot of
they,
fans are rare.
right. I'll just stay out of my office. I'm good.
Yes. So when you get paired with Johnny Polo at first, do you think that's a good pairing, or is that something that's not really going to work?
Um, Whether it was going to work or not, I did not know. I didn't really understand it. I did not feel that it went together just for the fact that he was his gimmick was like a rich, spoiled kid that bought this monster kind of thing. I just didn't think it fit. Um, yeah, nothing against him. I like him. Just saying that I just don't think that it went with the gimmick.
And I know because I used to go to shows, obviously, a lot back then. A lot of the kids were scared of you too, and I don't know if Johnny Polo helped that really, like, gimmick. You know what I mean? Did you sense that too? It's like, okay, this guy, he's getting this kind of heat, and you obviously are that guy. But it's like, are you sensing getting the fans getting scared of like, wow, look at this guy's eyes. He's a big guy. He's a monster.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can see like when you watch back the matches and stuff. That music hits me. And the kids are just their eyes are they're all what the hell's going on kind of thing. Yeah, I can feel it. And I can see it. So yeah,
Very like larger than life, but in like that scary monster kind of Godzilla kind of thing. It's like, oh Jesus, who's this guy coming out?
right.
Very, very cool thing. So the 3 Mile Island thing, the atom bomb, the nuclear bomb stuff, that's all just the idea of you, or is that collaboration with Vince of kind of putting it all together?
Um, well, the atom bomb, like I said, was Tom Fleming's creation. They probably said I was from 3 Mile Island
Mm,
originally. That might have been all theirs. But the other things like the tongue and the lens and stuff, yeah, I put those touches on. And then I also, it's weird going back to merchandise, but I don't know if I was the first one, but I feel like I was the first one to ever approach Vince with my own merchandise. I had met with some graphic arts people in Atlanta, had the idea of the foam footballs and stuff, and the
yes.
Bomb Squad, Atom Bomb T-shirts. I had a whole catalog, and I took them into him, and he popped. I mean, oh, this is great. Get these made right away, kind of thing. He loved them, and so that's why I was like, no one's probably ever done this before, but I just went with it, and so did he.
Very cool idea. And he's like a marketing whiz. He loves that stuff. So if somebody comes to him with something and he pops, it's pretty
Right?
great.
Yep, exactly. That's why I think I was probably the first wrestler to go in and say, "Hey, boy, take a look at this." And I had, like I said, I had a catalog of, I say catalog, probably 6, 8 pages, maybe 10, I don't know, of all the stuff that I had, all the designs, all my ideas, and he loved them. So
Very cool. Yeah, the football thing was an awesome idea. Yeah, I guess Nerf, right? Kind of.
yeah, it's like a Nerf ball. Yep. But man, it could go up into the rafters. Man, I could hit up into the third row, no problem. They would fly.
When you're going along in the WWF, who are you working with a lot? Are you working Undertaker a lot? Like, who are you kind of wrestling most?
Uh, well, I worked in so many. I was telling somebody the other day about how many casket matches. I don't need to be in another casket till it's time to be in one permanently. But yeah, I was in a ton of casket matches in the U.S., international. I worked with Taker a lot. I worked with Brett. I worked with Randy a few times. Man, I worked with a lot of people. It seems like I worked with Bigelow. It seems like I worked with the whole entire roster. It seemed like at least I can't. I worked with Yoko. Um, boy, I can't think of anybody I didn't work with.
When you're dealing with the Undertaker, working with the Undertaker, how is he? Like, is he stiff, snug? Is he great to work with? Is he kind of teaching you? Like, how is he to wrestle?
Yeah, I'm sure he was bringing me along. That was never stiff or nothing. At least I didn't think he was stiff. I personally, I'd already been through, like I said, the military, combat training, college football. If you like, I'm okay with stiff. I prefer that, honestly, than something that's so light that it's not there. But yeah, I'm sure he was a little bit ahead of me training wise and progression wise. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I think we sort of helped each other, honestly.
Was he a locker room leader at that point, or he didn't really roll into that character, or behind the scenes, backstage guy? He didn't become that till later on.
I would probably say it was later on. I mean, we had a lot of people with, a lot. We had Brett and we had Yoko. We had a lot of guys in the locker room. We had Randy. Uh, so I wouldn't say he had that role or whatever, if there is such a thing. Yeah, I would probably say that came along later, and he was Vince's project. So, you know, I'd say it was later.
With you, you get rid of Johnny Polo, you get Harvey Whippleman. Was that a better trade for you?
Again, still not the best fit. And I don't know what would have been the best fit. Maybe not have a manager at all. I
Right.
don't know. It's hard to say looking back on it. Um, I don't think those were the two um, that we needed to go in. I think we should have went in a different direction, but that's just what I think. My opinion.
Yeah, maybe Adam Bomb didn't need a manager at all.
Maybe, maybe not. It had to be the right one. I just was waiting for the right one. I just don't think the first two were it. You know.
You did have, speaking of Bret Hart, you mentioned him earlier. You did have a great match with him on Superstars. What was Bret like to work with? He seems like, the ring general, the master. What was Bret like?
Yeah. Excellent technician. Learned a lot from him. Love working with him. Nothing but good stuff about Brett. I mean, like I said, I think I learned a lot from being on the road so much because it was such a brutal grind. Like I said, people have no idea, but when you're looking at 280 plus days
Wow.
per year, plus personal appearances, plus autograph sessions or whatever, you think about 280 days, different city every night, and not just U.S. I'm talking international and around the world. That's a meat grinder.
And you're not a small guy either. So planes, trains, automobiles. I mean, it's not good for you.
And weight training and wrestling every night, trying to find good food at a restaurant. It goes A to Z as far as you know. It is what it is. But that was the schedule, man. It was no joke.
Especially then, there was so much travel and stuff involved. Was it a bit brutal for you, like, as far as maybe drinking or partying or doing some extracurricular activities to kind of get through those days? Because 'Cause you're on the road so much. I mean, you're way more on the road than you are at home.
Oh yeah, you're definitely on the road a lot more. I was not really a big party person. I would drink occasionally, but I could not. you know, after the match, go and stay out all night and then go to the gym next morning. When are you going to rest? When's your body going to recover? You just got to know when to, hey, it's okay to take a day off and try to rest and recuperate because you got to fly across country. You're going to Europe or wherever you're going. Yeah, you got to be smart about it, you know. But yeah, it's hard. Like I said, at times it was a meat grinder. I just couldn't believe. I'm like, I can't believe I just got back from Europe. I'm home 2 or 3 days. I'm going back. I just left there. But that's where at the time, that's where the money was for the fact that this was going through this big steroid trial at that time. And so it seemed like all the money was being pumped into the company to keep him out of jail. That's the way I think about it. It seemed that way. I don't know how else everybody was looking at it, but the money was not there for me personally, because you always think, man, hey, I made it to the big time, right? I got action figures, I got video games, I got all this stuff, but and I've said before, like when I get home, I see the paychecks, I'm like, are you kidding me? I just was like, not buying this. So yeah.
Is that one of those things where you don't think Vince is gonna be back? You think he's gonna end up in jail? Or what did you kinda think with the steroid trial?
Oh, I figured he'd get out of it or something would happen, or I really didn't think about it that much. We all knew it was going on, but we were so busy working that we didn't really think. I don't know. We just didn't think about it, I guess, that much.
It's crazy to think about wrestling now and then look at that generation of guys then. It's like, my God, a lot of the guys today, if you say 200 pounds, you're like, wow, this is a decent sized guy. You guys, I mean, you're 6'6", 6'7". Duke the Dumpster Drosy is 6'6" or 6'7". Hall and Nash and or even Earthquake at that point, the Godwins. I mean, there's the gun, Billy Gunn, Bart Gunn, Smoking Guns. I mean, all the Yokozuna. I mean, there's so many guys there. It's
Yeah.
just amazing looking back. Can you believe just how the business has changed where you guys were monsters, larger than life, and now it's like, oh, the guy's 205 pounds. Oh, decent size.
Yeah, 205, we would be throwing that
Yeah.
all over the building. Yeah, man. I just like for example, Yoko going through the airports and stuff. The poor guy. I mean, he had to struggle, man. He was always on the carts and stuff, getting from point A to point B. He had to have 2 seats in first class. He was so big. Um, it was tough on him. I could just imagine. It was tough on me. I could just imagine how hard it was for him. Um, you know, in that schedule.
Crazy. As far as kind of you're in Royal Rumble 94, you're at WrestleMania 10, and I was there live and I was kind of shocked. You get a quick loss to Earthquake. Did you kind of think they were going to do something more with you, or were you like, wow, this is kind of surprising? 30 seconds? Like what?
I was surprised because the whole week prior to, you go and you work your matches over in Europe and then you bring that match back to the States. So I had worked Earthquake like 10 nights in a row. So we had like a 15-minute match laid out. It was a hell of a match, and I was like, I'm looking forward to this. This is going to get over because I'm doing all the flying, 90% of the bumping because he's so big. He was 6'7", 400, 370, whatever he was. I don't quite remember.
Big boy, yeah.
At least 375. Anyway, so I was doing the boom, 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 the flying, whatever. But we had a good match worked out. And I was just real disappointed that, I was told it was due to time issues or whatever, because they weren't even going to have the match. And then I guess they decided to just throw it out there as a squash. But yeah, I was disappointed, no doubt. I mean, I had, like I said, I wanted to show them the match that we had ready for them. So yeah.
Yeah, that 10-man tag does get cut off the show, so there was some time constraints going on where they were cutting matches.
Exactly. Yep, that's what they did. They trimmed out, I guess what they could.
Would you rather have not been on the card, or rather been on the card with that match? Like, were you gonna?
I don't know. Almost say, not be on it. Because I had heard a lot of the guys that were not on the show got the same payoff that I got. And I'm just like, damn, I got squashed and really got pushed down the card, for the same thing. So yeah, it could have went either way.
And it's funny, I always talk to Dr. Tom. He was working the pre-show that night with the bodies against the Bushwhackers, and he said he wished he was on the show. But I said, well, a couple matches were really kind of cut short, and one match got pulled. So he's like, oh, maybe not then, as far as being on the show.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, it could have went either way.
So eventually, you'll be a part of Royal Rumble '95 too. Do they have any plans for you? Or are they saying anything to you? Because it's like you're not really getting a push, but you're not really getting too beat up. Because you do have that rematch against Earthquake on Raw. Obviously, goes a little bit longer this time around. But
Right.
are they going to do anything with you? Do they have any plans for you? What's kind of the
Uh,
intel?
well, I turned face, at
Hmm.
the end of that. And so it was picking up steam, and they could see that it was picking up steam in Europe and here in the States too. So yeah, I think they definitely had some plans once they saw, wow, this guy's really improved. So because if you're on the road that much, you're going to get better. If you don't get any better, then you need to just pack it up and just go home permanently.
Right.
And I knew I was getting better. I could feel it. I could see it. I could feel the crowd. I could, work with their reactions, interacting, all the above. So yeah, I felt that it was definitely it was on an upswing.
Did they say that you're going to win the Intercontinental title, win the King of the Ring? Did they kind of give you any promises or no?
Yeah, well, that was I would say the work schedule. The pay was really the biggest reason, but yeah, I was also promised, and probably other guys were too, whatever. But I was actually sitting down with agents, and this is what they had after I put Mabel over at the King of the Ring tournament. Then they said, "Well, we're going to put this strap on you, the IC strap, and we're going to run with you in this direction." And I'm thinking, well, okay, that's great. But it never happened. For whatever reason, they decided not to go that direction. And like I said, I just kept going down the card. And I lived in Atlanta, and I knew that Bischoff wanted me to come in. So for a lot more money. So it was not a hard decision for me. You know.
So did you ask for your release or they released you?
No, after like I said, I'd been lied to, and I'd rather you just not tell me. Just say, don't even bring it up. Let's just, I'll do business. They want me to put Mabel over. I put him over. I would have done it either way. Well, they didn't have to tell me, hey, we're going to do this with the IC belt. Just, don't tell me that just to try to, make things better. Just be straight up about it. And then they were not. And between that and the schedule and no home life, and I was like, okay, that's it. I'm done. I left. I was supposed to be in Boston. I said, nope, I'm taking the next flight home, and I did, man. Vince called me, like, why are you not in Boston? And I'm like, well, you want to hear? Here's the reasons why, and it was just what we discussed. And so, yeah, so I sat out for I don't know how many months till my contract expired. I worked in the UK for a few places in between, and a few spot shows in the US until I signed a 3-year deal with WCW Ted Turner. You like my Artie Spooner air yeah. So yeah. So man, I always felt like I belonged in WCW. I don't know why. It just seemed a much better fit for me. You know.
Did you know Bischoff? Were you friendly with him?
Um, I was not really friendly with him. I think I'd met him through a couple of people in the Atlanta area, but he told me, hey, let's have a meeting. We met at a place in Atlanta, and it's like when I walked into the room. Like when I walked into a room, people look around. I'm a big guy, and at the time, man, I was ready to go, and he was just like. He was looking around, like looking at people looking at me, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you're coming, you're signing." And I definitely wanted to. I couldn't wait to working back in WCW.
So Vince was pissed that you were gone, though. Was he like mad at you or not really?
Yeah,
He was mad.
but hey, that again, um, pay me what I'm worth at least, or at least make it reasonable. Let's talk about it. And none of those things happened. So yeah, I'd had shoulder surgery. Um, I had impingement where my shoulder joint was crushing down the bone, and they had to go in and scrape it out. And I was supposed to be out like 8 to 10 weeks, and I got back and I had a match within 6. So I was just pushing myself all the time to get back to like make them happy. And I was like, that's not good enough. I'm like, well, then what is? What else do I got to do to get it working? And I felt I was much more appreciated and compensated uh, in WCW.
Did you like Vince overall? Like, what was your relationship like with him?
Um, it just was not really that great. There were a couple of times I thought, oh, this is, things are starting to, we're breaking through a little bit, but it never got to be where it was a good relationship. I don't feel. And then, once I left, of course, um, I'm sure he didn't like that. But again, you go do 280 days plus and tell me how you feel, and then you get home and you see that check that's it's just not adding up.
So you end up WCW as Wrath, the part of the Blood Runs Cold storyline with Glacier and Mortis. What'd you think about that character? The look is cool. Obviously, your look is cool. The outfit is kind of cool, but it's a little different. It's a little Mortal Kombat-esque. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I knew what they were going to do the whole time. I got to talk to Eric. I had a great relationship with him. I could talk to him very easily about any of the questions I had about what we were doing. I knew we were doing a Mortal Kombat gimmick. I even went to a judo. I did kickboxing and judo for like 8 months of nothing but training on that and the other stuff we were doing. So I knew what it was. I even got a spot in the Mortal Kombat TV series. I was the special guest star of
Yeah,
that.
awesome.
So yeah, I mean, I knew where they were going with it. Yeah, and like I said, it had a phenomenal look. They put a lot of money into it. It just so happened that was coming out about the same time the NWO was starting, and then that just sort of steamrolled just about everything, really, because it was so popular. Um, so that's sort of that direction of what the character, the
Was
original Wrath.
Bishop, like you said, you could talk to him? Was he easier to get along with than Vince?
Oh yes, man. I've told this. I felt like I was sitting outside the principal's office waiting to go in to see Vince.
Yep.
I'm serious. I was just like, and I had to go through like 10 agents just to get a meeting. I'm like, this is BS, man. And with Bischoff was like, I could talk to Eric. I had a question. Eric was super busy, just like everybody else is, but he would still take a second and say, okay, tell me what he thought about where I was going and the direction and stuff. So just much better relationship.
What do you think about working with Chris Canyon, who was playing Mortis?
No problems at all with Chris. Chris was a bumping machine. Could do just about any and everything. So yeah, it wasn't. I was open to it. I knew that Eric was behind it, so that was great. I mean, when the boss is behind it, how can you not get with the program?
Yeah. What did you think about Glacier in that storyline? I know you were kind of saying the NWO kind of steamrolled it, but did you think it would work? Let's say the NWO wasn't there. You think that Mortal Kombat stuff would have worked at that time?
It's hard to say. Working with Glacier and Ernest Miller, Ernest was a karate champion, and then Ray was already an excellent martial artist. So yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, if it would have given some more steam, and then we still had some hell of a matches. If you look back at some of the pay-per-views, like Fall Brawl of like '97, I think it was, and then the matches we had, me and Canyon had against Ray and Ernest. All good stuff. I mean, it was just a matter of the timing and the placement of the other stuff that was going on, because you remember you got 2 or 3 hours of TV to fill, so there's a lot of things going on.
Yeah. Did you think you were hitting your physical peak at that point? Because Wrath as a wrestler and Wrath as the gimmick, I mean, you were kind of on a roll quite a bit, and then quite a good undefeated streak for a while.
Yeah. Once they, I had a meeting with Eric, and it just seemed like the whole tagging with Canyon was sort of, everything was going running down, and I just said, can I do Wrath the way I want to do it, and just you take a look at it? And he said, yeah. And so he gave me a little bit of time to put it together, and it worked, man. I came up with the meltdown as a finisher, and nobody had ever done it that way. I was the first to do it that way, and so it just, man, it went on a roll. And like you said, 6 or 8 months, I don't know how long it was, undefeated. I mean, ran through any and everybody. I was on. It was like a runaway freight train, man. It was just, it was, and I could feel it every night when I went out there, man. The eruption. So yeah, it was on a big roll.
Yeah, you were getting a nice push too. Did they say they were going to like kind of building you up for Goldberg or building you up for Nash? Was that kind of the idea?
I was told, I think, I don't remember who told me exactly, but it may have been Eric. I don't remember. But yeah, that was the plan, is that they got to see the first few months. They were like, okay, we got something here. Hang on. Let's let him roll. Let him roll. And next thing you know, the Goldberg talk started. Everybody wanted to see those two bulls go at it. And then that was the plan. But like a month before, out of nowhere, they threw in the Nash match, and then they stopped my undefeated streak. And then I think maybe the next month he beat Bill's streak, I think.
Yep, just around that same time.
Yep. Yeah. So, and of course you can't go undefeated forever. Everybody knows that. But I think could have got a lot more mileage out of it.
You think Nash was the right guy, to be Goldberg, or maybe somebody else should have been?
It's hard to say. I mean, there were a number of guys on the roster that could have. It just, I mean, you look back at like how we were working with our interworkings with Japan. Look, I mean, like Scott Norton, like he was such a huge star in Japan. I mean, he could have done it. There could have been a number of guys that was able to snap his streak. Yeah, I don't think Nash was the only one. No.
Did you like Goldberg, and did you like Nash?
I got along with Nash. I got along really well with Bill. I worked with Bill in Japan towards the end of my career a lot, and I worked a lot with Bill once. Later on when I was in tag with Brian Adams.
Yep.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I just with Bill, a lot more chemistry. Then again, I only worked Nash that one time. I think we could have got a lot more out of just even that match. We could have gotten a lot more mileage out of it. But it seemed like they were maybe rushing it a little bit. Hard to say.
As far as you at that point, before Chronic happened, did you get injured or something happened?
Yes.
Okay. So you get injured, that kind of derails a little bit of what was happening. What happened with the injury?
I worked in Seattle, had taken a red eye to Orlando, and then worked that night in Orlando, coming off the top rope, clothesline, came down wrong. I'd done that move. I said a million times, not that many. I'd done that move a lot. It was anything different. It's just, I don't know if it was maybe a bit of fatigue. Hard to say, but I landed wrong, and man, I snapped that ACL, and that was it. And I mean, I finished the match, got a DQ out of it because I had to go to the floor with it. I could barely even stand on it. So I was out for, I don't know, 6, 8 months. And I told the story, and I'll tell it to you. During that time, I was getting a lot of, like I said, I just did the Mortal Kombat TV series. I'd done some stuff for TBS Superstation commercials and stuff. And I also got a part in Gladiator. And so I was supposed to go to Morocco for 18 weeks to film Gladiator and tore the ACL, and that's it. So that goes out the window along with Wrath's whole winning streak, So yeah.
Damn, bad timing. That's just a
Hey
shitty
man,
injury. Yeah.
that and then I missed out on that movie, so I was pissed. I read for other things, but that was the one that was like, damn, that's the one that got away. Are you kidding? Because that's to me, in my opinion, it's a great movie.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. So
now, when you come back, though, when did they say, okay, you and Brian Adams should be Chronic? Like, who kind of pitches that, and when does that all kind of go down?
Well, that was about the time Russo came in, and Brian was out for something. I'm not quite sure if it was injury or they just were taking him off to get him started in something else. But he called me and asked me what I thought about tag teaming. And I said this before, but at first I was like, well, I like Brian a lot. And I was like, man, I think I'm just going to restart Wrath again and get this injury over. And I just was like, I left it at that. And I just sort of think about it thing. And then he called me a week or so later. He's like, hey, what do you think about this and this? And next thing you know, man, I agreed to it. And I'm so glad I did. Trust me, I love Brian, man. He was the best partner I could have ever had, with hands down, man. In the locker room, traveling A to Z, man. He was the best. So I'm so glad he asked me to form the team, and then the fans did a poll or something. They came up with the name, and then we put a spin on it and spell it KRONIK. And then the music, which we had a big input in with Jimmy Hart. We flew down to Tampa, come up with the music, and Brian did the voiceover at the very beginning. So yeah, we both had a lot of input on it. And man, I don't know, it was just me and Brian's ability to get along outside of the ring and then also in the ring. But we got over almost instantly. I mean, if you go back and look at how fast we got over, I just think that it was perfect storm as far as WCW needed a big monster killer tag team, and we were it.
Great team. Like you said, great theme, great look, everything about it. You guys just seem to connect and have great chemistry, like boom, right away.
Yep.
And then there was, the New Blood, the Millionaires Club, obviously Russo writing. Did you like the creative at that point in WCW?
Most of it. And again, like I said, we were one of the few things that were really getting over and working at the time. And I'm not just saying that from just my point of view, whatever, but I mean, I could feel it and I could see it every night that we went out there, and the pop we got. And then when we did all our big stuff, and Brian did the full Nelson Slam, I did the meltdown, and then we did the double choke slam as a finish. I mean, people were just with it. I mean, I don't know how else to, tell you, but yeah, it worked, man.
Yeah, you guys were over like Rover at that point for sure.
There you go. Yeah.
You had two kind of short tag team title runs. Did you feel like they should have been longer, or that doesn't really matter? Like, you don't think about stuff like that?
I really didn't think about it. I mean, if we'd have won it 3 times or 5, it was just great to have that accomplishment. And then of course the biggest thing, and I've told you this before, that the biggest thing is that winning all Japan titles were the biggest thing. And I know that's jumping a little bit ahead of your,
yep.
But yeah, that we'll come to that. But Yeah, it was great to win them on 2 occasions, no doubt.
With that too, like you mentioned before, Goldberg, you guys kind of main event 2-on-1 against Goldberg. Basically, they're saying his career is on the line; he can't lose. You guys end up taking the loss, but you're main eventing a Havoc pay per view or a big pay per view. Was that a good experience, or was it one of those things like, oh, we shouldn't lose to a guy 2-on-1, even though there was, obviously a little bit of shenanigans involved?
Yeah, I mean, we had me and Brian, we both had such a good working relationship with Bill. And so it was not it wasn't a big issue as far as we took it in stride. We knew we could continue to get over even with that loss. We knew we could bounce back from it, and we did. So
Then you both kind of get hurt, and then all of a sudden WCW sells to WWF. Was that a big shock to you?
yeah, I would have, I think everybody was shocked. I remember I just got a concussion. I had 30 staples in my head from a chair shot. Animal caught me with we had a tag match and we were working and I was outside with Lex and Lex reversed me to the guardrail. And Animal came through the crowd with a chair. And he just nailed me. And I think there were some kids or something in the way. So he had to reach over and he overextended and he was at full speed, right? And he caught me with the rim, the hard rim, and it opened me up in the back of my head, man. I'll just tell you this story real quick. I thought for a second, I was like, man, the fan just threw like a Coke at me or something, a big glass of Coke. And I'm like, man, why the hell where's all this? Where'd this come from? And it was me just flowing blood, man. I was looked down, I was like, oh shit. And then I just started getting dizzy. And I was supposed to go in and tag Brian. And Brian was looking at me like, stay down. And that's the last thing I remember. And I was out. I don't remember anything. I do remember Goldberg and Benoit helping carry me from the ringside and then into the ambulance. That's about, and then to the Baltimore hospital where they stapled my head back together. And like a great partner, man, Brian was there all night with me, man. I mean, that's a good friend that will do that, stay there. He could have went to the hotel and went to sleep or whatever, but he was there. He stayed there all night with me, man. That's just,
good friend.
Oh yeah, man, he was the best.
Any heat with Animal?
No. Like I said, he even called to check on me. No heat at all. I mean, yeah, it hurt like hell. I didn't expect it. It was supposed to not catch me with the rim, but like I said, there were kids in the way and he had to reach over. But man, it sounded like a gun went off. I mean, bam, and it just it laid me open, man.
Scary,
That was one of at least 4 that I know of concussions, but that's a whole different ballgame.
Man. Scary stuff for sure.
Hey man, it's all fake till somebody gets hurt, right?
True, yeah.
Yep.
Doesn't sound like fake at all to me. But you do end up. I'm sorry, I was going to say you do end up with a lot of injuries throughout the career, though. Like you said, because you had the knee, then you had shoulder, you had the cut open head. I mean, it's not fake. There's just no way.
The elbow in there. I've had 13 surgeries. And I've had 13. 13. There could be 1 or 2 more that I'm forgetting about, but they weren't major surgeries. But neck, back, knee replacement. But man, I'm still at the gym every day. I will not stop. So that's hashtag no days off, man. That's me. Yeah.
After WCW is dead and buried and WWF buys it, you end up in WWF, but only for a very, very short time as Chronic. How did that kind of all come down? Was Undertaker kind of wanted you guys in, or did you still have contracts from WCW? How'd you get in?
I think Taker probably had something to do with it because he was friends with Brian also. So yeah, I think, and I wanted to go to Japan. That was my take on it. I told Brian, it's like, I think we need to go to Japan. That's where I just felt it would, for our style, our look, our size, all that, the hard hitting style would have been perfect for us. But we were getting towards the end of our career too, and so by the time we get to back to WWE, we had been off for, I don't know, almost a year, and so we didn't have like, we needed our timing back. We needed, even though we were working out, training and stuff, it's just not the same. You got to get some time under your belt to get back into that groove, and we were not. And I even had it suggested once we got back up there to put us on the road for a little bit, and they were like, "No, we want to do this, and we want pay per view, and blah blah blah." Once again, rushing everything, and so we ended up having. And in that match, Kane had a staph infection. Taker had, I don't know what was an injury. I don't remember what. My neck. That's another. I forgot to mention that surgery, which was a big one. My neck I needed an operator on. I can't remember if Brian was injured. I know he had a lot of back issues. It just was not a good. It was not a good fit for the rush job that was put on it. So
should have been built up a little bit, give you guys a little bit of time to get some ring rust off.
Well, that and yeah, like timing and just everything. I mean, like I said, we there were some places that we were training in some rings and stuff, and during our time off, there were some places we were training and stuff. But it's not the same as getting back into that groove,
Absolutely. So, did you kind of want your release at that point? Did you get released, or what happens with the exit?
The exit was they basically said we'd only signed a 1-year contract, so they basically said we're not happy with the way it turned out. Well, hell, I wasn't either. Who was?
Right.
But again, I had suggested, hey, let's go get some time, and so they could put the blame on whoever, and I'm not going to sit and point fingers about who did what and who's protected and who's not, whatever. Either way, we took the exit. We got paid for a year. They said they were. I've heard these rumors like, oh, they were sent down to OVW. I never went. Brian actually went, and I think Brian ended up really just almost like helping guys and grooming them for other stuff, during that time. And I know that he had a big influence helping like Eddie Guerrero come back after an injury and a lot of stuff. But me, I didn't. I just waited until it was done, and then we could get our shot in All Japan.
Yeah, and you guys obviously, like I said, you guys win the tag team titles, be Muta and Kaya. So I mean, pretty nice little run you guys had over there for sure.
Yeah, and like I said, I was a huge, massive Stan Hansen fan, and to go back and I get to watch some of that footage of him presenting the belts to us, man, that was just like you said, man. You see, that's just nothing better than that, man. I mean, to me, that was the top of the mountain with having him and packed, sold out Osaka, Japan. It was awesome.
Very, very cool. And you and Brian kind of a little bit like, Hanson and Gordy, or, like those big time rough and tumble Gaijin tag teams. Fits in
Yeah,
perfectly.
right. If you look at all the history of the Road Warriors and different teams that have won the titles through the years,
Gordy and Williams, yeah.
exactly. Hanson in so many combinations. It was a huge honor for us to win those belts. I mean, it was, like I said, to be in that group, the history of that title, it's the tops for me.
And then, like you said before, you and Goldberg kind of get reintroduced in Japan. Goldberg and Great Muta against you and Brian, which is pretty cool. Pretty big time main event over there.
Yeah, and we had a good relationship with Bill. I remember Bill was pretty nervous about going over there and protecting, what he had built up, which I don't blame him.
Yep.
But me and Brian and Brian especially helped Bill and let him know what he was getting into and how to work the Japanese style and the crowd and all that stuff. So yeah, he helped. We have, and I said both of us, but Brian even more so helped Bill a lot. I feel, and I'm sure Bill will tell you the same thing.
Now, as we hit the wind down and head towards the finish,
Uh-huh.
You mentioned before some acting. I remember, weren't you doing some big time movies and stuff too? I remember seeing a lot of cool pictures of you, almost look like Hercules and stuff like that.
Uh, I don't know about big time. More like B movie. I was
Mm.
like the main the main event for Axeman 2, which was like a horror flick, classic B movie horror flick. Um, and I've had a few other offers and different things. I did a Australian Coca-Cola commercial and just different things. Um, but never any major stuff. Like I said, man, when I missed out on Gladiator, that was pretty disappointing. But that's the way life is. You ups and downs, and that's just the way it goes. Um, so yeah.
As far as kind of doing that, did you like acting? Do you feel like wrestling's an easy way to kind of get into acting? Because it's a lot, easy transition, so to speak.
Some of it, yeah. I mean, I had a feel for when to work the hard camera, when exactly my cues. I knew my lines. I like an Axeman 2, man. I was spot on for everything. And I was so completely believable as an axe murderer. I mean, I had it
Yeah.
down, and I didn't miss a beat with that. So yeah, that part of it. But man, there's that is a lot of work too if you're doing the physical part of it, which is what I end up in most of the time. It seemed like um 12, 14 hours a day, easy sometimes. Um, Easy but not easy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Um, it's hard to say. It's not always an easy transition to that. I think it's a little different for everybody.
As far as your wrestling career and the injuries and stuff, was painkillers and that kind of stuff, was that kinda just the norm of guys getting into that stuff? Because you gotta work so many days on the road, you gotta make the next town. Was that kind of just a normal occurrence that people were doing painkillers and stuff just to make their pain go away so they can make it to the next town, wrestle again, and do it all over again?
I think it was the norm, unfortunately. And with my case, I had about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, I had some negative publicity where I had some false accusations of things against me at the time, which now are all being dropped. It's dragged out little bit because of the COVID and the whole court process, but it's behind me. Um, but you know, the bottom line is that after that many surgeries and at my age, I had developed a dependency on the opiates. Um, and the doctors and they kept prescribing them, but then again I had surgery after surgery after surgery, and it just seemed like the norm, but it was not the norm, and I knew it wasn't the norm, and I didn't like it. I didn't like being on them. But the other option was like, what do I do? And I didn't know what to do at the time. But when I got that negative publicity and stuff, I just said, you know what, I've overcome and made so many good things happen in my life. I was like, there's no way anymore. I, I said the day that I had got the negative publicity, I felt so down about it. And lucky that my wife is a nurse. I went cold turkey. I just said, that's it. And I quit. And it was hell. I had to call on all my strength, man, God and family and everything else. But I knew that, and I said this before, and I will tell you again, but God, family, and weight training, man. Those are the things that have always sort of been with me, and once again pulled me out of that hole, man. Because it is for all the people that think that they have to be on them, they have to stay on them. You do not, and it's not easy to quit. And I was so miserable for 14 or 15 days. I don't even remember sleeping. I just remember laying on the couch, not having any energy, miserable. Just, I was like, what the hell is happening, But I said, there's no way that I'm going to take another pain pill. And I have not over 2 years. And man, I'm so proud of the fact that I was able to beat it. And they say never, but absolutely never again, because I will not go back through that hell. And like I said, I had to call on the military and college football and all the strength that I had to do it. And I did it. And I said, no way, man. There's no way a pill is going to control my life. And so, man, it's just, and everything has been so much better. And it's amazing 2 years later that I can think more clearly, have all this merchandise come out, that stuff that I created, all my designs, all my ideas. So just for anybody that's out there that, don't think you cannot do it. Because you can, and you get in your mindset and you just have that ability to just say, look, and you don't have to go cold turkey, because I'm sort of hard headed. I don't know what you call it. I'm set my ways about doing things, man. I have to do it my way. And that was my way. That's not everybody's way. Like I said, I'm lucky that my wife's a nurse and she was able to really watch over me and get me through it. But man, it's just so much better not having to worry about that. When am I going to take a pill? When am I, it's just not, man. And they were like, well, how do you manage it? I'm in the hot tub at 5 a.m. stretching and getting myself going. I'm weight training. I'm doing cardio every day. I'm doing some yoga. I'm doing a lot of different things. And I'm just taking care of myself every day, man. So hopefully that'll help somebody. I don't know, but I'm not preaching to anybody. Just want to let them know that you can beat it.
Is it a hard thing to get over though? You're doing that every day, and then just like you say, quitting cold turkey. Is that like a really hard thing to kind of get used to being able to just do that? Just boom, just like that?
Yes, absolutely. It was, like I said, it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. But I was so determined, because I was already wanting to be off of them anyway. So I was so determined to be off of them. And just like I said, I was so miserable. Like the first 14, 15, 16 days, I was just like, I just want to sleep. I just want 1 hour of sleep, anything.
Right.
I was, but I just kept trying. Once I got through those couple of weeks, then I was like, okay, I can go and I can slowly start to work out, and slowly, man, I was pathetic. I was just doing just 5 pounds and then 10, and then the build up, each day I would keep notes of all my training and all the stuff. So, yeah, it's hard to do, and but you don't let anybody tell you, oh, it can't be. It can be done. But yes, it was very difficult. I'm so proud that I did it, and I'll never do it again. I can tell you that. I absolutely will not go through that for anybody.
And that's awesome that you kind of got over that and got through, and they're so positive
Oh
about
man,
it today. It's awesome.
hey, it's all 100%, man. I'm just like I said. Um, it is because you have so many, like with me, I had so many surgeries, and then you just start being so repetitive of, okay, I take a pill at every 4 hours, and then just on and on and on. So then your mind and everything thinks that you got to have them, and that's the way I felt. I felt a little trapped, honestly, and I just finally said enough is enough. I'd wanted to say enough is enough for a long time anyway, but I just said this is not going to happen, and I don't know, my iron will or whatever you want to call it, but um, I just I beat it, and I'm proud of it.
Great, great stuff. And as
Yeah.
far as kind of looking back at everything, wrestling wise, do you have any regrets like from wrestling? Would it be getting into the painkillers, or would it be maybe not sticking up to Vince and saying, "Hey, this is what you need to do with me." Like, do you have any regrets looking back at wrestling?
Um, I don't know. I would say regrets. I would just say maybe there could have been some things that could have been done differently. I see a lot of comments on social media that maybe this could have been better. He should have had a better run at this, or could have kept Wrath going for longer and different things. But everything happens for a reason. I think for the most part, and yeah, I don't regret. You know, has it been hard? Was it difficult to overcome a lot of things? Absolutely. There are things in life that are difficult. Anyway, you just got to push through them, man. Um, like I said, there's no days off. You just get up and start swinging, man, and that's what you got to do.
As far as kind of looking back at your career, do you have some favorite like matches and opponents? I always love to say it's a wrestler, especially you that were, obviously in the big time for a long period of time, WCW and WWF and even All Japan. But I love kind of you go to YouTube and you're like, oh, he mentioned this guy and this guy, and you kind of make a YouTube playlist of all the matches. Like, what could who could you put on that list?
Um, Man, well, like for example, me getting to work Savage in WWF at the time, that was amazing. And I got to work Taker a ton of time, so many casket matches, and so I got to work with Bret Hart. I don't know how many times. Um, there's just like I said, I worked. It seems like I've worked with just about, at least in my generation. I feel like I've got to work with just about everybody. Um, so it would be a big list if I had to just. I don't know if I could narrow it down to one person.
What was your favorite place to work? Was it WCW or All Japan? Maybe.
Um, I loved All Japan and also loved WCW for the Wrath run, and then also teaming with Brian was the best. So yeah, those two. But then there's parts of Adam Bomb that I loved. I didn't like that schedule. I don't know who did. I mean, it was insane. That's why there were a lot of guys that didn't survive it. I mean, it's sad to say, but you can. There's a point to a breaking point on that kind of schedule for everybody. It seemed like
Yeah, crazy, crazy schedule back in that day. But as far as maybe one last big question for you, as far as like your lasting legacy or stamp, when people look back at Brian Clark, like what is the legacy? Obviously, you got Adam Bomb, you got Wrath, you got Chronic, but what is the legacy of Brian Clark?
mm, I don't know. Like I said, I get a lot of compliments on the social media as far as how athletic I was and the things that I could do that most 296, 300-pound guys couldn't do. And I mean, from my flying to just all the power stuff I did, that just goes back through my background of the powerlifting and the college football and stuff. But I just think just that I was so athletic and all the different things that I could do versus someone the same size. And it just was very uncommon, I guess. And like I said, the three-time World Tag Team Champs. I mean, that's pretty. That's pretty good. And and having Brian as a partner, that was, like I said, the best. So
For sure. Maybe underutilized in WWF as Adam Bomb. I felt like that maybe they'll put the rocket ship on him but hey, didn't happen. That's okay.
I've heard that. I've heard different comments like, that something like that. Hey, we should have done more. Um, yeah. So I'm not ignoring you at all here. I know that we have a special guest
Oh,
before we wrap up.
yep.
So I'll make sure that's ready. Yeah. So to answer your question, yeah, they absolutely could have done more with me, but they could have done more with a ton of guys. So yeah.
Yep. As far as maybe getting into the plugs again and then talking about your pro wrestling tee store, please give us all the information where everybody can get the stuff and what's available.
Um, Pro Wrestling Tees, for example, has started out with either 9 or 10 different designs that I had created. They're at prowrestlingtees.com, and you look under Adam Bomb /Chronic, and there's your whole selection of all the different shirts, and there's more to come. We got a lot more stuff coming up. Talking about possibly micro brawler. Also in negotiations with a toy company in the UK to redo the Atom Bomb. I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but during those 2 years of me getting everything back together, also got my trademarks. So Wrath, Chronic, Atom Bomb belong to me. So that's just more of the creative stuff I've done. So yeah, pro wrestling tees, and then of course Wrestle Merch Central in the UK. They have a massive line. I made these bomber jackets. Who better to have a bomber jacket than Atom Bomb?
I was going to say that. Yeah.
So they're pretty badass. I designed it myself, and so check them out. I mean, you're not going to be disappointed wherever you shop. Both of these places are loaded.
Awesome stuff. As far as social media and stuff, where can everybody kind of find you? Just check you out, see where you're up to.
At Facebook, it's under Brian Clark, and at real Brian Clark on Twitter. I'm new to Twitter, so I'm catching up to speed on that. But I welcome everybody. I've joined a ton of groups and want everybody to be able to check out the merchandise, and just so they want to chat wrestling, whatever they want to talk about. But those two are what I've got going right now.
Nice. Now, as far as a special guest, I know you were teasing it.
No, I mean, let me just make this call here real quick. During my time off, I would say 11-month-old now. She is 11 months old.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah. So I wanted to introduce to you my baby girl. So,
very nice. Oh,
check out the goggles, man.
Oh, I love it. Nice. What's her name?
This is Skylar. Come here.
Hey, nice.
I gotta, give her glasses. There you go. All right. Look at the camera, baby. Oh,
yes. Nice.
This is my little COVID girl here.
Love it.
Oh, she has been a blessing, man. I'm a huge dog person. I've pets, animals. I'm a big animal loving person, but yeah, she has been, boy, when we first got her, she's just out of control. She's been amazing. So yeah, that is my Scottish Sheltie.
Nice. They say that the animals have been.
You thought I was bringing out a baby, didn't you?
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you have a baby. Oh my God.
I got you. You bought it. Okay.
Yes. But they say the animals have benefited from COVID because, the owners are home a lot more. So it's very, very cool.
Man, this one is so spoiled. Yeah, and we got her as a puppy. Michelle flew to Dallas to get her. We found her in Dallas because we couldn't find anybody here in Arizona with the Shelties, and so we found her and brought her back. And oh man, she's been a blast.
That's awesome. Very good. Love it. Atom Bomb with the little Sheltie. Very cool.
Yep.
So, Mr. Clark, thank you so much for all the time. Really, really appreciate this time. This has been awesome. I love going down memory lane. You had a great career, so it's awesome to kind of be able to run it down with you.
Great. Hey, man. Again, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Again, appreciate all the love from the fans and the old school fans, the new fans. Everybody's been great, man. They've been so positive. And everything right now is so positive for me. Like I said, just, man, every day it just gets better and better. Keep swinging, man. And like I said, reach out to me if you got any questions or however I can help, man. I'm out there. So just,
All right. All right. Awesome stuff, Mr. Clark. Thank you again. Really appreciate all the time and good luck with everything, especially the merch. Good stuff.
All right, man. You take care. I appreciate it.